Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1470A, and today's date is January 12th, 2018, and the title of the episode is Control the Currency, Manipulate the Economy, Collapse the Economy. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, I titled this report, Control the Currency, Manipulate the Economy, then Collapse the Economy, because we know this is what the central bank does. Now, the central bank uses other parts of the government. They use the corporate media. They use other factions within government. Now, of course, they get free money. They get tips. They get insider trading tips. And most of these individuals become very, very wealthy in government. And what they like to do is they like to put out manipulated information. The corporate media loves to do this. They'll tell you that, oh, retail is doing the best that we've ever seen in our lifetime. This is exactly what retailers needed. The retail apocalypse has been called off. Everything is great. The economy's doing fine. And when you really look at these numbers, we see that something doesn't make sense. Now, yes, retail has ticked up a little bit, and it didn't meet expectations of what they thought December was going to be like. Now, sales growth was about 0.3% month on month. Does that sound really that great? No, it doesn't. Because what we need to do is we need to go back in time a little bit. If we go back to last holiday season, 2016, going into 2017, they had headlines out there. And one of the headlines says, retail sales jump in December on strong car and online shopping. Retail sales increased by 0.6% from a revised 0.2%. Now let's think about that for a second. They're telling us, and this was last holiday season where we reported that the holiday season was a complete disaster. They were telling us that the retail industry grew by 0.6%. Now first they had the numbers out at 0.2% and then revised them to 0.6%. And then in the year of 2017, stores closed down. This year, we're getting an increase of 0.3%. Very interesting. What does that tell us? It tells us these numbers are manipulated, and if we go by what happened last year and we look at this year, you know this number is much, much lower. You know they're going to revise it and make it seem like, retail was at 0.8%. But once again, you have to understand, sales does not equal profits. Just because sales are at 0.3% doesn't mean these stores made a profit. Maybe their profit margin, maybe they had to put these things on sale and they only made $1 from each sale. Can the store stay open? No. And then we break it down even further. And we look at some of the sales like electronics. Well, in the month of December, they were down by negative 0.2%. That's not good. We look at clothing accessories, down negative 0.3%. We look at sporting goods, hobby, book and music stores, they were down negative 1.6%. Miscellaneous store retailers were down negative 2.9%. General merchandise stores, department stores, negative 1.1%. There were some places where sales were up. Motor vehicle parts, 0.4%. We see furniture was up 0.6%. But the things that you purchase for the holiday season, it seems like those were all down. But we're getting these sales numbers and we'll go with them. Again, we're not getting the actual numbers from the stores, and those are going to be very, very different. Now, they're trying to convince us, and they keep putting out, by the way, those credit card numbers where, oh, look, it's up by 4.9%. It's not really up by 4.9% because you need to look at the past numbers. And if you look at the past numbers, it's up like 0.5%. But they like to put out those numbers anyhow. Now, while all this is going on, savings is at a 10-year low. People have no savings. And if you take this a step further, credit card borrowing hit all-time new highs. Now, if we go back to 2007 going into 2008, we're at that same point. So they didn't meet expectations, the retailers. It's very close to the same exact number that we had last year, which was 0.2%. Of course, they revised it to 0.6%. These percentage numbers are ridiculous anyhow, because the sales were very, very low last year. This is not going to help. And we already see that Macy's is closing. We see Sam's Club is closing. Sears is going to be declaring bankruptcy. Neiman Marcus right now is facing bankruptcy. And this is coming from Credit Risk Monitor. And we know that there are other stores, Bon-Ton, Sears Holding, and many others. They're all on the verge of crashing. Now remember, the retail debt comes due this year. Now the question is, do these retailers have enough to pay for the debt, or are they going to have to get more debt to pay for that debt? And this is where stores get into trouble. Again, sales and profits are two separate things. And we're looking at this economy, and it is completely manipulated to make you think that it is doing well. I mean, the headlines, when you read them, you think that everything was great. This is what they do. They manipulate what is really going on because they want everyone all in. Because when everyone is all in, this is when they pull the plug and the economy comes down. It's the same exact thing they've done time and time again. And when I say they, it's the central bank. We see the core consumer prices. They have risen faster than expected. And once again, inflation is rising. They're using a lot of manipulation to make us believe that inflation is not rising, but it's moving very, very quickly to the upside. And this is with housing. It's with college tuition. We're seeing it with many other things, food and many other things where we see inflation moving up. And they also the stock market, they also offloaded a lot of inflation out of this country. And we can see that as we look at this economy and as they continually manipulate it, it just gets worse and worse. Now, what's very interesting, we've been reporting on how the housing market has been doing. And of course, they're telling us these 20 cities prices are moving up, and that means everything is great, which is meaningless because in 2007 going into 2008, housing prices were at the highest we've ever seen before, and that didn't mean the economy was doing well. Actually, that meant the opposite. The economy started to break down, crash, because of all the underlying things that they really didn't tell us about. But this is what they do. They keep everyone in the dark. Now, Wells Fargo, almost their entire business is on mortgages. And right now, they have reported the worst doing mortgage number since the financial crisis? How could this be? If the real estate market's doing so fantastically and everyone's buying a house. Well, we debunked that a long time ago. And when we look at this, we can see that Wells Fargo mortgage application pipeline plunged by a whopping 23% to just $23 billion. I mean, we're almost back to the financial crisis level. I mean, this is unbelievable. And we can see that this isn't getting any better, and this has been declining since 2012. And it had a little pop-up, but the trajectory is downward. Now, when we look at the bank's consumer loan trends, these reveal that, aside from credit cards, there's a huge decline in credit demand, and people are not taking out loans. We know mortgages. We know automobile is on a decline. If we look at the fourth quarter of 2016, third quarter of 2017, fourth quarter of 2017, it's declining. Other revolving credit installments is declining. And what these numbers disturbingly reveal is that the average U.S. consumer cannot afford to take out mortgages at a time when rates rise by as little as 1%. It also means that if the Fed is truly intent on engineering a parallel shift in the curve of 2 to 3%, the U.S. can kiss its domestic housing market goodbye. What this means is that if these rates move up, it's going to knock thousands upon thousands of people out of the housing market. which means the housing market is going to crash. Didn't we see this before? We did. Back in 2006, 2007, when they were raising the rates, people who had adjustable rate mortgages just left their home because it didn't matter if they refinanced it, the rates were too high. It pushed millions of people out of the housing market. It crashed the housing market, and that had a domino effect on the rest of the economy. There were other things happening, of course. We had the fake subprime securities. We had corporations that were pretending that everything was fine when they were really bankrupt. They couldn't survive. They needed billions upon billions of dollars. Guess what, people? The same thing is happening now, but it's much, much worse. Now, Bill Dudley, he is the second most important person in the Federal Reserve, and he said the following, which is very interesting. He admitted that there are risks in the economy, and he's concerned about the long-term fiscal position of the United States, the U.S. debt. Specifically, Dudley said that the Trump tax cut will increase the nation's longer-term fiscal burden, which is already facing other pressures, such as higher debt services costs, entitlement spending, as the baby boom generation retires. But there was no mention of any other administration who, doubled the debt in a decade. There was no mention of that. There was no mention of how the U.S., how the economy was doing prior to Trump. What they're doing right now, and this is the central bank, they're setting it up to blame Trump for this. Now, what Trump is doing, he's setting up the economy not to repair itself, not to get it back on its feet, not to bring back manufacturing so we can continue on this system. What he's doing is he's maneuvering and bringing this economy into a different sphere, a sphere away from the central bank system. And it is a race right now on who is going to cross the finish line first and who is going to be blamed. Now, Trump's mission right now, and it's not just Trump, by the way, it's not just him. There are many patriots behind him who are pushing this agenda where they are basically reworking the economy to fit into this new economic structure that we're entering. Because, as we can see, the old system, it's pretty much dead. The central bank wants to get rid of this old system, which, of course, they want to keep it a secret that they were in charge of. They want to start a new system and blame the crash on the old system on someone else. It could be another country, it could be Trump, it could be anyone. It doesn't really matter at this point, but they're going to try to do that. And the race is who's going to pass the finish line first. Will it be those patriots and Trump who are trying to rework the system and get rid of the central bank? Or is it going to be the central bank who's going to be able to bring the economy down and blame it on Trump? They're both doing the same exact thing right now, where they're pushing the economy to its limit. Trump wants to bring it down and blame the central bank. The central bank wants to bring it down and maybe blame the Trump administration and those patriots who are trying to take control. Trump is trying to buy a little bit of time to rework the economy so we can move forward once the system resets. And that's where we're headed right now. The system must reset. Now, the central bank has another worry. The worry is cryptocurrencies. And what's very interesting, they put out that fake news story of, South Korea, where they're going to be issuing this law where they're going to ban cryptos, and all of a sudden Bitcoin dropped. And they can say, hey, look how volatile it is. Now the story comes out that South Korea is not going to do anything with the crypto exchanges. Actually, they've been receiving thousands upon thousands of people saying, we don't want you to do this. And they didn't even draft a bill. They didn't even do anything. They just came out with this story, and I'm talking about the cabal, the central bank, to push the agenda to make the crypto market look very volatile. Now, there's a reason for this, because again, in the title, I said they need to control the currency. Now, Secretary Steven Mnuchin came out and he said something very interesting about Bitcoin. He says we want to make sure bad people can't use Bitcoin to do bad things. So what he's talking about is that he's working with a group of 20 nations to prevent cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin from becoming the digital equivalent of an anonymous Swiss bank account. What is he talking about? They're going to make laws that is going to take control of the crypto market. He says we are very focused on cryptocurrencies. And he's saying that the U.S. government has regulations. We want to make sure that other countries have similar regulations. And we want to make sure that we can stop those bad people from using Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Mnuchin said that the Financial Stability Oversight Council, a government body that assesses financial system risk, has formed a working group focused on cryptocurrencies, and explained that in the United States, and people may not realize this, under our laws, if you have a wallet to own Bitcoins, that company has the same obligations as a bank to know your customer. So in the United States, we have rules for anti-money laundering. Except the banks do launder money. And that's the banks doing it for the elite. And they're saying that other countries don't have this. And basically what they're doing right now is they're going to put forth a set of rules and laws to try to take control of the crypto market, to make sure that it never becomes a currency, that the governments of all these countries will be pressured to make sure that cryptos never become a working currency. Now, of course, he went on to say that don't worry, the Fed's not going to be coming out with their own cryptocurrency. Remember, everything that they're saying is always the opposite of what they really mean. And what he's really saying is we need to take control of the cryptocurrencies, not because of bad people. It's because we don't want everyday people to use this as a currency and bypass the dollar, the euro, or any central bank currency. And I don't mean just for Bitcoin. It could be any cryptocurrency. And what he's really saying is we're going to take control of this entire system with rules and regulations. And once we have the rules and regulations and we make sure that all the other countries have rules and regulations, we'll be okay. Because then we don't have to worry about cryptocurrencies or the blockchain or anything like that. And if we so desire, we can come out with our own and we'll make additional laws that says, since those are volatile and bad people are using it, we need a centrally controlled one that the Fed will use. And we've known that this was coming. We knew this is what they were going to try to do. And like I said, this is a race to see who crosses the finish line first. Now, of course, those patriots and Trump who are fighting against the central bank, they're fighting against the cabal, they're fighting against the neocons. It's a huge fight over here. And we have the cabal, the central bank, that are fighting against these individuals because they like their system. They like the control. They like the manipulation. They like to control governments. Because, again, if the central bank controls the issuance of currency, the creation of currency, they can control everything. And why would they want to give that control up? They wouldn't. So we're headed towards this transition, this reset, and we're watching it in real time. Now, the economy is ripping itself apart. They're going to keep these stories up that everything is great, and it looks like they might even use this tax plan to blame this whole thing, because it looks like the central bank is trying to make their move, maybe to bring it down, during a certain period, maybe this year. And again, the Economist magazine was out there saying that in 2018, this is when everything's going to change. And once again, people are saying, oh, we're not going to be going on a gold standard, but China and Russia have a lot of gold. Doesn't mean they'll back the currency by gold, but it will give people confidence in the new system. And that's all people really need, governments need, to know that, okay, you have a real asset. We're confident. We're okay to use the paper currency, even though it's not backed by it, because look, the dollar's not backed by anything. And people are okay because they were convinced that it was backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. And they felt secure in that. So they can use the gold to say, listen, it's not backed by gold, but if something happens, we do have an insurance policy. And we have this gold which was reevaluated, repriced, and we have more than enough to handle any type of situation. And governments and people will say, okay, we believe you. And this is what's happening right now. So we have these two things happening all at once. And we're definitely going to go through a transition. It's just going to be how bad it's going to be. Is it going to be a little bit smoother and softer? Or is it going to be hard, sudden, and boom, people are going to be very angry. Now, if the central banks, let me just explain this, if the central banks get their way, it's going to be hard hitting because they want to make sure that it's blamed on what those individuals in government did. Trump, the patriots behind this. And they'll make sure that the corporate media, the people understand this is why it came down. And the harder they bring it down, the more angry the people are going to be at who? Not the central bank, at the Trump administration, at those patriots who are fighting for the people. If Trump passes the finish line first and is able to outsmart the central banks, not just him, other individuals who are working with him, and he's able to smooth this out, it won't be as bad, but he can put the blame on the central bank and say this is why it all happened. And this is what we're looking at right now. We're still going to go through the transition. It's not going to be pleasant, but these are the two scenarios that I see happening at this time. So whatever you're doing, get prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.
Cryptocurrency News Channel. Your new future. Thank you. Follow us on YouTube.